Sometimes it is not easy to finish what you have started. If you used to finish what you start, please buy yourself something, because you are a gentleman. You are so smart. You are different. So in those different people, I want to be among today, this night, by finishing what we have started, by finishing this documentary that is talking about beer, alcohol, ethanol especially, because we have seen it is the denominator of each and every single beer, alcohol, if I can say, ethanol. Now, as we are here, this documentary will continue distinguishing measurement standard and the safety guarantee. A standard drink is a research and the communication unit. It is not a universal biological safe dose. I must let you know that. Different countries define standard drinks differently. In the United States, one standard drink contains 40 grams of pure ethanol. There are 355 milliliters of 5% beer. For 148 milliliters of 12% wine, or for 44 milliliters of 40% spirits. WHO's position is most direct. There is no risk-free level of alcohol consumption. It is always toxigenic. The risk of cancer begins at lower exposure, while the absolute risk rises with increasing dose. Most alcohol attributable harm, however, comes from heavier patterns of use. I will start talking about the different varieties of alcohol, if I can say, starting on beer. As we have seen, that is between 3 to 8% for many commercial products. ABV varies widely. Strong but craft beer, these beers may contain much more ethanol than typically larger. So when we are talking about wine, it is 8 to 15 for many wines, and this one, serving size matters, if I can say. A larger glass can contain more than one standard drink. Do you see? So that is why it is always a matter, if I can say. So gin, vodka, whiskey, rum, between 35 to 45 commonly. So distillation concentrates ethanol, and small volumes can deliver a larger dose. Do you see? There are also other fortified drinks that are often greater than 15%, and those are higher ABV that increase dose per volume. So there are other unrecorded or homemade products that are highly variable, and the strength and the contaminants may be poorly controlled in wine. So according to all those, the important comparison in grams of ethanol, not whether the label says beer, gin, wine, traditional brew. That is the thing. Two beverages with the same grams of ethanol can produce similar systemic ethanol exposure or Rudo concentration, drinking speed, and other constituents can change absorption and behavior. Here we are trying to ask ourselves why spirits can be especially dangerous. Gin, vodka, whiskey, and rum are not different poison from beer. Ethanol is ethanol. The problem with the spirits is concentration. A person can consume a larger ethanol dose in a small amount of liquid, and the strong drinks are often often used in shots or mixed drinks whose size and alcohol content are difficult to estimate. Did you see? So they are giving those spirits in shots. mixing them with some other stuffs, I don't know. But all of them, you cannot measure the precise content of alcohol, if I can say. You see, so distilled, because these spirits are distilled, their distillation concentrates alcohol. They concentrate ethanol, I mean. You see, so distilled spirits can therefore facilitate rapid dosing. Rapid dosing raises peak blood alcohol concentration and increase acute intoxication, vomiting, aspiration, injury, and respiratory depression risk. Sweetened or flavored spirits can also mask the sensory perception of alcohol and make a strong product easier to consume quickly. Did you see? So, for sober person, the danger is not that spirits somehow attack. Sobriety as a special chemical category. You see, so the danger is that the person may underestimate the dose. For example, a person with an alcohol use disorder, the danger is compounded by tolerance, loss of control, and the possibility of combining alcohol with other depressant drugs. So, no beverage should be described as a safe because it is a beer. So dangerous only because it is a liquor. The relevant questions are how much ethanol, how quickly, what else was consumed, what is the person's biological and health status, what happened after intoxication. From the first sip to addiction, here we can try to give you different steps that will be biologically crossed, if I can say. Not everyone who drinks becomes addicted, I mean. Not everyone who drinks become addicted. Addiction is not simply a matter of weak character. Alcohol use disorder is a medical disorder involving impaired control over drinking despite adverse consequences. So, National Institute of Alcohol Abuse, Alcoholism, NIAAA, describes a cycle involving buying intoxication, withdrawal, or negative affected, and preoccupation or anticipation. When we are starting with step 1, we talk about the exposure. A person encounters alcohol through family, culture, advertising, work, celebration, stress relief, or social pressure. Then on the step 2, there will be a pharmacological reward. Ethanol changes several neurotransmitter systems, including GABA. And this GABA is a receptor of ethanol in our body. Then including also glutamate. And for non-alcoholic people, the GABA and the glutamate might be on balance. And the dopamine and the indigenous opioid signaling. Some people experience pressure, reduced anxiety, and increased sociability at this step 2, pharmacological reward. Then when it comes to step 3 of running, the brain associates the reward with the places, people, music, smells, and the bottles, glasses, and even rituals. These cues can later trigger craving. We're coming to the step 4 of repetition. The repeated drinking strengthens learned associations and habits, and drinking may move from a choice to an increasingly automatic behavior. When we are coming to step 5, we are talking about tolerance. With repeated exposure, or the brain then adapts. A person may need more alcohol to achieve the same or subjective effect. This is not a protection against injury or organ damage. but it is something that is welcoming negative reinforcement. Step 6. The person may begin drinking not to feel pleasure, but to escape anxiety, irritability, insomnia, or withdraw discomfort. Did you get? And all of those are welcoming loss of control. I mean step 7, whereby the attempts to cut down fail. Drinking becomes more frequent and larger and more difficult to stop once started. Did you get? This welcomes the dependence and the withdrawal. Step 8. After prolonged heavy drinking, abrupt cessation can produce clinically significant withdrawal, which can sometimes be life-threatening. Did you get the meaning? So after all those kinds of menace, there we are becoming cue-driven loss. Step 9. Stress, social environments, and alcohol-associated cues that can activate craving even after period of abstinence. We will start now talking about something like chronic disease. The step 10. By chronic disease, the long-term heavy use increases the risk of liver disease, cancers, cardiovascular disease, neurological disease, psychiatric problems, infections, and even injuries and premature death. This pathway explains why a person can start with a beer and later prefer stronger products. But the cause is not that beer chemically transforms the brain into a gin brain. Rather, the individual may progressively seek a larger or faster ethanol dose, or may develop preferences shaped by the price, availability, taste, the social setting, and even random cues. When you are talking about beer, please don't forget those steps. That after exposure, there will be ethanol changes in your neurotransmitters in your brain, and your brain will start studying, will start learning, and after repeating and repeating once again, your brain will start adapting and tolerate. And this will not be a good thing, because you will start to lose control. And as you lose this control, you are becoming a dependent. You are losing your independence. Then you will become a dependent, an alcohol dependent person, with very much risks that are exposing your liver, your internal organs, your kidneys even, and even some your colorectal and your pharynx and the larynx and whatever. You will be exposed to very many risks. The flavor, the product design, what is hidden by the label? Sometimes the answer is less dramatic than social media suggests, but still important. Alcoholic beverages can contain ethanol plus water, sugar, or carbohydrates, acids or colorants, flavor compounds, fermentation products, processing aids, and even trace contaminants. But according to ERX evaluation lists a range of substances that may occur in alcoholic beverages, including acetaldehyde formed in the body, ethyl carbamate or carbamic acid, arsenic, cadmium, benzene in the contaminated beer, and even acrylamide in the beer and the other compounds. Their presence and the concentration vary by beverage production method and even contamination level. The presence of the compound does not mean that every bottle contains a dangerous dose. Flavor is scientifically important because sensory properties influence consumer behavior. Aroma, sweetness, bitterness, carbonation, temperature, and even mouthfeel can alter how rapidly a beverage is consumed and whether its alcohol content is perceived. This is not a proof that every flavor is an addiction weapon. It is evidence that product formulation can influence palatability in the consumption behavior. WHO's recent work on alcohol labeling is revealing. In 2025, WHO in Europe reported that many consumers were not aware of alcohol's cancer risk and argued from prominent health warnings and better information on alcohol content, ingredients, and nutritional information. The first European Union country to implement cancer warning labels, Ireland, began doing so in 2026. Ireland. The legitimate public health secret is therefore often an information problem. Consumers may the brand, flavor, and the percentage, but not understand grams of ethanol, cancer risk, serving size differences, or the absence of a risk-free threshold. What about carcinogens and additives? The most important carcinogenic exposure is not a mysterious additive. It is alcohol consumption itself. IACS classifies alcoholic beverages as a group 1 carcinogenic to humans. Ethanol is metabolized to acetaldehyde, which can damage DNA. Alcohol also promotes oxidative stress. And before continuing, if something can damage DNA, it means it can hijack activities of the DNA. What are the activities of the DNA? DNA is there in the nucleus. It is the command center. It is a source of character. So it means if this one DNA was giving commands and it is hijacked, replaced, it is damaged, it is removed, it means its responsibilities, its activities are going to be taken by something else, this acetaldehyde. That is why it is carcinogenic. This will lead to cancer. This will lead to something like an imagined growth, if I can say. Alcohol also promotes oxidative stress. And the oxidative stress leaves something like those kinds of there are those things that are going to be removed by oxidative stress. I forget them. Sorry, I will remember it maybe before I finish this documentary. But what is the thing is, alcohol, this ethanol can promote oxidative stress and they can affect hormone pathways and folate metabolism. So if all those can happen, it means alcohol is casually linked to cancers of oral cavity, pharynx, larynx, esophagus, liver, colon, and rectum, and the breast cancer as well in women. So also, IAC also has noted not suspected the association with the pancreatic and the lung cancer, although the strength of evidence differs. but tobacco is particularly important amplifier. Alcohol can act as a solvent that increases tissue exposure to tobacco carcinogens, and the combined drinking and the smoking can produce substantially greater upper aerodigestive cancer risk than either exposure alone, if I can say. So according to all those who have seen, contaminants such as ethyl carbamic acid can occur in alcoholic beverages, especially some of distilled products. But it is essential not to confuse hazard classification with the actual risk from particular bottle. Risk depends on the dose, exposure, frequency, and the concentration. Regulatory systems exist precisely because contaminants can be controlled. So when we are talking about ethanol, you must know that all ethanol is in all alcoholic beverages, and it is group 1 carcinogenic, principal intoxicant, if I can say. When we are talking about acetaldehyde, you must know that it is formed in the body, especially in the liver, from ethanol, and it may also occur in the beverages. But this one is a genotoxic and the central mechanism of alcohol-related carcinogenesis. Did you get? Good. So after this, you must know that there is ethyl carbamic acid. This is various fermented distilled product, which ERK group has, according to ERK, it is in group 2A, concentrations, which its concentration go varying, if I can say. There is something also called the acrylamide, in some beers, and can be present also in different, can be possessed by different materials. It is a beverage concentration which can vary from a beverage to a beverage. There is also something called benzene, arsenic, and cadmium. They are contamination that can occur in different kinds of beverages. But this one also is a hazard that depends on exposure, controlled manufacturing that aims to minimize contamination. So sometimes the flavor compounds are in beer, spirits, and the flavored products, usually used for sensory properties. Individual compounds require separate safety assessment. So according to others who have seen, there is a role of food scientists. What should they contribute now? As we can see, food scientists should not be treated as servants of the alcohol industry or as the enemies of it. Their professional role should be to understand and control the food system from raw material to consume, while placing safety and the truthful information above commercial pressure. Above commercial pressure. Measure ethanol accurately using a validated analytical method and a verified declared ABV. In the monitor fermentation and distillation to reduce toxic contaminants and the unwanted byproducts. Please develop rapid methods for detecting methanol and the other hazardous adulterant in unrecorded or illicit products. Try to study microbiological safety of the fermented beverages, including contamination and spoilage. Try to characterize flavor compounds and determine whether formulation changes alter drinking speed or palatability. Try the sugar try to quantify sugars, calories, and the other nutritional components so that labels don't present misleadingly incomplete picture. Investigate packaging, storage, temperature, light exposure, and chemical migration. Support independent surveillance of contaminants such as ethyl carbamic acid and metals. Try to develop non-alcoholic alternatives that preserve social and sensory functions without ethanol exposure. Try to work with public health scientists to evaluate whether product innovations unintentionally increase consumption among young people. Please, we beg you, support transparent labeling of ABV, serving size, ingredients, allergens, and even energy content and healthy warnings. In Africa, develop safer local fermentation and the analytical system without destroying culturally important food practices will help us. The African contribution is especially important. Local beverages are part of food culture and livelihoods, but unrecorded products can have highly variable alcohol content and contamination. Food scientists can help communities move from grasswork to measurements without implying that all traditional beverages are inherently dangerous. In as much as we have tried to say, here there is something that I can ask you. If a drinker can live longer than a non-drinker, this question was produced by one of my followers, and it was the most misleading story in alcohol epidemiology. The idea that moderate drinkers live longer than abstainers because alcohol is protective. This is not true. Older observational studies sometimes produced J-shaped curves. Modern analyses have shown that these curves can be distorted by confounding and by placing former drinkers with illness into the abstainer group. A large systematic review and meta-analysis published in the German network Open found no significant reduction in all-cause mortality among people drinking less than 25 gram ethanol per day after adjusting for key study characteristics, and increased risk at higher intakes. This does not prove that every individual right drinker will die earlier than every abstainer. It means that alcohol should not be prescribed or recommended as a longevity intervention. What we are trying to say here is that we are not supposed to say like never drinks. This when we are saying like never drinks, no alcohol, when for someone who never drinks, there is no alcohol exposure, avoids alcohol attributable cancer and intoxication risks. When you are talking about low volume drinker, you are talking about risk lower than a heavier drinking, but not zero. Not reliable basis to recommend alcohol for longevity. Moderate drinker can still accumulate cancer and other risks. Apparent cardiovascular benefit in older studies is vulnerable to bias. Heavy episodic drinker then can accumulate high acute risk like injury, poisoning, aspiration, violence, and even crashes, also long-term disease risk. When it comes to heavy continuous drinker, this is linked to higher cumulative risk of alcohol use dependent or alcohol use disorder, liver disease, cancers, cardiovascular disease, neurological harm, and even premature death. So therefore, a person who does not drink should not start drinking to live longer. A drinker who wants to reduce risk has a scientifically sound reason to drink less also. Did you get the meaning? I think you need to thank me. So then, how can we survive without beer? So I think this is a common question to the sobers, if I can say. The answer is surprisingly simple, biologically speaking. Human survival does not require ethanol. Alcohol supplies alcohol supplies energy, but no essential nutrients that cannot be obtained from safer foods or beverages. Do you see? So beer can have cultural, social, or sensory roles, but it is not essential nutrients. Replace the ritual, not just the liquid. Sparkling water, malt beverages without alcohol, fermented non-alcoholic drinks, tea, coffee, or fruit-based drinks can provide a social substitute. Build a social environment where refusal is normal and does not require explanation in your friends. Eat before social events where alcohol is present. Food does not make alcohol safe, but it can reduce the speed of absorption. Avoid using alcohol as the primary tool for stress, insomnia, or emotional pain. For people with alcohol use disorder, use evidence-based treatment rather than relying on willpower alone. If someone has been drinking heavily for a long time, abrupt cessation can be dangerous. Medical assessment may be required because withdrawal can be severe. Survival without beer is therefore not a medical mystery. The challenge is social and behavioral. Identity, friendship, celebration, stress management, business, hospitality, and habit. Public health should make alcohol-free choices socially ordinary and rather than treating abstinences as abnormal. When you are talking about how someone can reduce harm if they continue drinking, the public health advice must not pretend that risk can be reduced to zero while drinking. The strongest risk reduction strategy is not to drink. The people who continue drinking, the following principles reduce avoidable harm without presenting is a safe drinking reserve. Don't drive, operate machinery, or swim while intoxicated. Avoid mixing alcohol with opioids, sedatives, or other drugs that depress breathing. Avoid rapid, heavy drinking and drinking games. Don't assume food, coffee, or cold showers or sleep instantly remove alcohol from the body. Don't use a person's apparent tolerance as a proof that they are safe. Know that the actual ABV and the serving size of the product. Know it. The actual ABV and the serving size. Avoid unregulated alcohol with the unknown strength or prevalence. Pregnancy is a situation in which alcohol should be avoided because no safe level has been established. People with certain liver, pancreatic, neurological, cardiovascular, psychiatric conditions may face substantially increased risk and should discuss alcohol with the clinician. Seek urgent medical help when a person is difficult to wake, has abnormal slow breathing, repeated vomiting, seizures, severe confusion or signs of poisoning. What the alcohol industry does and what we should not overclaim, if I can say. All those will be in the next conversation. So I love you so much. Thank you for having chosen us. It was a pleasure, of course, to be with you.